So for the past 2 years, the Auburn Tigers have run a very intricate, very effective rushing attack under Nick Marshall at quarterback. Very different situation coming into 2015 with Jeremy Johnson at the controls. We bring in Jamie Hancock of Preps Nation to help us sort out the Auburn offense, but specifically looking at the quarterback position with Johnson and his backup. Jamie, thanks so much for joining us. Let's dive right into Jeremy Johnson's situation here, because he was very impressive. The one outing against what turned out to be a really good Arkansas defense carved him up pretty well with 3 touchdown passes. So based on what you've seen, what you know of him, what does he bring to the table?
Jeremy Johnson is a kid that's a homegrown state of Alabama product who had a lot of pressure on him in high school as he was turned over the keys to a very good high school program as a sophomore and really made big strides between his sophomore and senior seasons. He's a kid that was also a great basketball player here in the state for a championship program. So Johnson has always been the leader of a big-time type program, and now he's going to take over at Auburn. He's a kid who does not play the game in the sense that you see a lot of quarterbacks who are very vocal and very out there as far as how they carry themselves. He's somewhat quiet. He is a leader by example. He's a young man who gets things done on the field. He's built like Cameron Newton, plays the game a little more like, and forgive me for the term of this individual, but Jameis Winston. He's a kid that can hurt you as he leaves the pocket, but he really wants to stay in the pocket, step up, and make throws down the field, and he is very good at that. He's a young man that is going to really do some great things at Auburn. Offense is going to look very different, but they're going to be very, very good, if not better than what they have been the last couple of years offensively.
So the extremes, not as much as going from, let's say, Michael Vick to Drew Bledsoe, but still, because there's athleticism from both of these guys, Marshall and Johnson, but it's just a different set of skill sets, strengths and weaknesses. So how could this affect the Auburn attack this year?
I think you'll see a lot of the same formations and window dressing that you've seen. Now they're going to put defenses into a bit of a quandary, because schools like Kansas State, they had some automatics. When they saw this motion, they did this. They ran this blitz. It was an automatic type thing. This time, you're not going to be able to do that sort of thing quite as much, because Johnson presents a completely different skill set. Yes, he can hurt you with his feet enough to make you honor him, because you turn a 5 or 6 yard loss on a sack into a 5 or 6 yard gain on first down as a run. That's really beneficial. However, all the blitzes and things that you've been able to do in the past, you're not going to be able to do it as much, simply because he can really push the football down the field and hurt you deep, much like Jason Campbell at Auburn, except Johnson probably brings a better throwing aspect than Jason Campbell did. Very similar type player. Both were very quiet leaders, both about 6'5", 230. This is going to be something that should vastly benefit Auburn as far as what they're able to do overall offensively, and it won't be just a ground and pound look that they've run the last couple of years.
Jason Campbell, of course, a high pick in the NFL draft and stuck around for 11 or 12 years or whatever it turned out to be, something in that range. Very long career in the NFL for him, mostly starting. So possibly good things ahead for Jeremy Johnson. Sean White's a guy I became familiar with watching the spring game, like most of us. That's the time that we got a chance to see him play, unless you're a real high school football recruiting guy. Then possibly you saw the Under Armour or one of the elite quarterback camps that he was the MVP in. So the accolades, the list is long. Jamie, can you talk to us about Sean White and what he has going for him?
Sean White is a kid that came onto the recruiting scene somewhat late, simply because of his stature. He's a 6 foot tall, maybe 6 foot tall, probably 195-pound type QB, who does not have one visual attribute that just jumps out to you. He does not have a huge arm, but he has a good arm. He does not run extremely well with speed, but he runs well enough to threaten you, much like Johnson does. It's just a different look. But what Sean White does do that is elite is his accuracy is extraordinary for a guy that's as young as what he is. And I liken him to somebody, and they don't necessarily look alike because the gentleman I'm going to compare him to was a bit heavier. But Chase Daniel, when he was at Missouri, is a Sean White type kid. Now, if White turns out to be as good as Chase Daniel, Auburn people will be extraordinarily happy. But that's the kind of guy that you have. Chase Daniel could hurt you a little bit with his feet, get down, get back in the huddle, and let's go again. And that's the kind of guy Sean White is. So Auburn people are really excited about what they have at the quarterback position. They look completely different. It's almost like Mutt and Jeff, 166, 6 foot. But their attributes are very similar. Johnson's got the bigger arm, but White can come in and run the same concepts that Johnson runs. And Auburn people are really happy at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, that's good stuff there. Jeremy Johnson, Sean White. Yeah, the Auburn Tigers could be very fortified there at quarterback. And despite some of the shortcomings, as you mentioned with Sean White, not pardon the pun there, yeah, he looked the part in terms of the performance at the spring game, doesn't look the part coming out of the locker room. All right, Jamie Hancock of Preps Nation breaking down the Auburn quarterback situation for us. It's always a pleasure, Jamie.
Always my pleasure to join you, Mark, anytime.